fit and who's not?
Who's not? Who do you want to know?
Okay, Alex Cuthbert.
No.
What's he looking like?
He's struggling a little bit, to be fair. He's not been on the training park, as in from a team perspective yet, which is annoying and frustrating for him. And we're getting to the bottom of it. But yeah, he looks a little way away at the moment, to be fair.
What would a little way away mean to them?
Hold on, I'll check my medical practitioner certificate. Look, I don't know, to be honest. I can't answer that question with any degree of accuracy. It's one of those things that it's how it responds, and there's obviously a lot of individual element to that. You know, as I've said to you guys before about different injuries, we talked about Justin Tipuric a lot, we talked about Gareth Anscombe a lot, we talked about obviously all the international players that you asked me about. The last 10% of it is the difficult part. Getting people back to 90% is easy. The last 10%, getting them back on the pitch, is the most difficult part, because that basically becomes an individual thing. So we're not at that stage yet. So we're not at that 10% stage.
Lovely. So if he's not back on the training field with the thing at the moment, fair to say he's not in your selection mind for the next few weeks?
No.
No. Okay, fine. November with Wales, or was that a bit
further? Again, the next couple of weeks are critical, really. So we'll have to see.
Gareth Thomas, he had a hamstring in the first game.
Yeah, he's trained, which is good. So that's encouraging. It's just whether we've got enough work into him. With those sort of injuries, you've got to be really mindful that you don't get them in a vulnerable state to get re-injured. You know, so that's just a judgment call really that we'll make later on in the week to see how far. If not this week, then next week should be fine.
And Sam Parry, I've already asked you what his problem is and how far he might be away.
Same, really. He's just got back in with the team, so which is good for him.
What's Sam's problem, Tim?
I'm not willing to discuss that.
Okay. Who else missed last week? Everyone else come through from last week? The whole squad, really? 23? Anybody?
Yeah. Who did we get? So we didn't get any HIAs from that point of view. Just think we're generally a little bit roughed up. But no, generally healthy, which is great.
Gareth Anscombe and Owen Watkin,
they're back. They're back in contention after their HIA from the week before. So yeah, that's good to get some more people back to select from for sure. Others that might be interested. So Matt Prothero's returned to training, which is great. Just thinking about anybody else. Tian's just starting to come back. Kieran Williams is back in training, which is good. Steve Myler's back in training, which is good. So yeah, that's probably the moves and shakers that you'd probably ask me about.
When you looked at the video again, pre and post match assessment, was it very much the same?
Yeah. I think we paid a big price for some small moments, which when I say small moments, I mean as in not in relation to impact, but actually things that you would often think wouldn't hurt you. So that's a credit to them, I guess. But we certainly were very happy about how we attacked and the style of game that we were trying to play. We've made big strides this year. You've seen in both of our games in order to do that. We still need to tighten up on some significant areas, around basics as well, to make sure that we make ourselves not just a good attacking force, but also harder to beat, because you know we do feel that we've made ourselves a little bit. We've produced performances that we probably have been a little bit easy to sort of take apart a little bit on the back of our own mistakes, really. And that's what I mean. I don't think it's necessarily about what opposition pressure have put us under. People have capitalised on our mistakes, and we know we want to grow our attacking game. So there's always going to be a bit of risk involved with that, and we accept that that's part of it. And trying to be the team we want to be, but we're trying to eradicate the bits that we can control quite quickly.
Two very different Glasgow performances this season so far. What are you expecting from them Saturday afternoon?
One with international players in with it and one without for that. So I don't think early season you can certainly do that. And you saw reaction, right? They were very disappointed in relation to their performance and their outcome for week one, and they responded as all good sides do, especially at home. You know, we're looking for a similar response from an outcome point of view, even though our performance wasn't horrendous. It needs to be more consistent in order for us to play against a team that's very positive and very ambitious. And it'll be good. I think a good contest for two teams that are going to go for it.
When you're selecting the side in this first block of Steb and Toby, you've got a lot of internationals. You spoke to Di Young earlier in the week about how many games these internationals can play.
Mm-hmm.
How much of a juggling is that to say if you've got more internationals in Cardiff as well? You've got 10, 11 players who can play 5 games. Getting that selection right over the next few weeks. How difficult is that, and how important is it?
Yeah, it is difficult because you have to gauge the performance, but also the outcome, and you second guess a little bit. It's if you get some critical momentum and win a few, you're probably you feel like you're under less pressure to put those guys out there. That being said, we've worked hard on growing a squad that's competitive. So it's not all about that reliance on international players. I completely understand why you asked the question, but we trust people that put the shirt on, right? And that we've stayed with quite a settled team as much as we can in certain areas, and I think that we've seen good performances out of some of those partnerships. Some of those things like the HIA are taken from you, and we need to get that balancing act between getting used to playing with each other again and freshening it up and keeping the energy. So those are the things, on top of trying to manage an international availability.
We spoke to Dan Lydiard earlier. I mean, he had 50 minutes last week. How good is it to have a player like him in your squad and also playing, he's a different sort of perhaps back row than you've got there as well. What does he give you?
Yeah, I think, everyone knows what Dan Lydiard's, strengths are. He's a absolute monster when it comes to effort. He's into everything, defensively, extremely consistent, and we negated a lot of the things that they wanted to do by his presence. And we talked about the little things and paying a big price. A lot of the things that we did well, there were little things in there, and Dan Lydiard was at the centre of them. So I think that he's a bit of an unseen hero, really, in relation to some of the stuff that he does. And we're pleased to obviously have him out there, back at ramming speed, and keeping that momentum going for us from a performance.
Just looking a bit further ahead, Toby. I mean, you've got players out of contract at the end of the season. Everything's on a bit of an impasse at the moment. First of all, as a head coach, how tricky is that at the moment when you're trying to plan? Yeah,
it's pretty hard. Well, impossible would be the phrase I'd probably use. It's really difficult because it's not just the rugby. Everyone knows what the rugby backdrop looks like. Everyone knows what the economic backdrop looks like. And uncertainty is a massive distraction. People have mortgages to pay, and security is massively important. So the sooner we can get to the resolution and give clarity for everyone on those aspects are really, really important. But we're also mindful that that's out of our hands. And we're hoping that we can get some resolution on where we can move forward as quickly as possible.
Just from a human element, Toby, the players, how are they coping? They obviously talk, you talk, they've got, it's not a normal job, is it? It's a contract that comes into next year. So how are they coping? Have you sensed any sort of frustration amongst them, and have you had to have a chat to them about it?
We talk about it, we talk about the elephant in the room for sure, because I think we want to be as transparent and trusting with each other and the relationships we've got for about where everything is, and not leave it to pub talk. So I'd rather get out in front, and Nick Garcia, the CEO, is been good in that area about getting out in front of the players. So that's great. But the situation, you have to be empathetic around it. All I can say is, from our point of view, I think our boys have been great about it. They understand it. They've not let it affect them in relation to their preparation. They understand it's there, and there's been a lot of turmoil in Welsh rugby, and they've got a bit of scar tissue around it for sure. Whether it's supposed mergers or financial situations or whatever, they've lived through a lot of it, a lot longer than I have. So, I think this is when your leading players step up, to be fair.
And there's been sort of chat about strikes, things like that, but there's nothing that's come across your bow, is it?
No, as far as we're concerned, it's business as normal. And that's the situations that, as it's been described to me, and until that differs, we'll carry on.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Toby. Good luck on the weekend.
Thank you.
Toby, with Jack Walsh last week, how did you assess his performance? And have you spoken to him?
Yeah, of course. I speak to most of my players, Mark. From my point of view, I thought he did exactly what we expected him to do, which was great. We talked about Dan Lydiat's influence. You know, a lot of the good attacking stuff that we were involved in had Jack's fingerprints all over it, and that's why we brought him in. That's why I was excited to bring him here. I spoke last week about his rugby league influence and his ability to play at the line and play brave, and he did that. And our challenge is to get more of those situations, I think. So from that point of view, he delivered on exactly what we had expected him to do, and that's good for us moving forward, right?
And the kick, these things happen, I guess. You know, the week before, he put one over in the derby.
And we're talking about a 1 minute of somebody's performance, where I'd rather be talking about the 79 minutes of the team's performance to take that out of the equation. We had plenty of opportunity to not be reliant on one kick, whether it be preventing what they wanted to do or delivering on what we hope to do. So, you know, that's where we'll focus our effort, on the team aspect. And, you know, any individual will always have positive intent. And you saw that, as you say, in the Scarlets week 1.
You mentioned Kieran Williams there. I mean, 18 months ago or so, he was playing really well. And in fact, at the start of last season as well, you know, he's had a few injuries. Are you looking forward to what he can offer this season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Kieran's like, you know, a talented player. You saw how destructive he has been, a ball carrier and having an influence on games. You know, and he's been really unlucky in relation to the injuries. He just get back a couple of weeks, you know, went to South Africa, get another injury, get another setback, and you know, you can't get any momentum in your own individual performance. So you start to, you know, and I think I'm on record about how one of the main things for players' performance is that they have trust in their body. You know, and especially when people come off long-term injuries, for example, or a number of injuries, and yeah, part of that is building your own resilience around your body, that you know it's not going to let you down. So if you can get that bit done, then you can start to build a performance and what that looks like for you. So from his point of view, yeah, he's had a fairly fractured, 12 months as you put it. And yeah, hopefully we get him back and he stays back. But the good thing for us is we want good players because we want to be competitive. You know how difficult and competitive that centre position is. If you look at what we've got there, with Joe Hawkin, Mikey Collins, Tian, Jack Walsh can play in there, George North can play in there, to name a few. So, for us it's a competitive position, but we want people to be able to push and push and push, as we said, not being reliant on international players, and keep a standard of competition that allows us to keep maintaining the performance. So we're hoping that he gets back into those levels as soon as we can.
I guess that aligns with what you were saying potentially about Keelan as well. He seems to have a bit of confidence now in his body, etc., and he's playing well.
I mean, how good was he last week? I mean, he was unplayable at times, which was fantastic. So from our point of view, he's got better and better. He can now stay out there for 80 minutes, whereas previously he was back for a bit. We were always worried about making plans for him around 50 minutes. So now he's got the endurance side as well as the health side of it. And as a result, you're seeing a player that's confident and influencing the game. And, his 2 tries were, a great reflection of that.
Where are you looking at with Michael Collins as regards his best position? Is it centre or is it full back? And I mean, Michael had a good game last week as well, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and you need multi-positional players, right, to people to fill in to a high standard and not just be utility players. My own personal view is I see Mikey as a centre, and we've talked about that. But Mike is the guy who's played so many Super Rugby games at fullback and can play there, to a good standard. And with Dan Evans' injury, we need people that are going to go in there. We've got a lot of young players in that position, and sometimes you need a little bit more of an old head and a bit more stability. So Mikey, what's great about Mikey is that he'll do what's best for the team. He's not precious about it, and as a result, we can get another very good player on the pitch.
So you play in Glasgow this week. You came up against Sion Tupeloto last year up in Glasgow, and he caused you a few problems. Caused Cardiff problems last year. I mean, how do you assess him you put any plans in place, you know, to check him?
Yeah. Well, hopefully he doesn't get the ball. That's the number one thing. I mean, as you say, influence in the game. You know, you come across people obviously that have massive influence in the game, and every time that we've been, you know, across the other side of the whitewash, he's had an influence, and how he started the season is certainly something that we're very mindful of. Stopping him doing it is a much different proposition, but we're certainly aware of his threat. And it's going to take a team effort to try and negate that, and obviously the threat that Glasgow pose right across the pitch.